Hello everyone, it's Suneve, and I'm coming to you with Killer Romance, a Jeff the Killer X Reader by DarkQueenXxRei. We're going to be starting off with Chapter 12, Varmint, Day 4. Jeff shook you awake. Hey, you really do sleep a lot. You weren't in a plane, you were in some hotel room. The windows were open and the sun was shining like an ultramarine fire with audacity. Loud roars and shouts consumed you, but everything else was silent. There was nothing to be afraid of, and all your fears were engulfed in a cessation. Somehow, you stared at the gleaming irises looming over you without a doubt that they were there for a reason. They were meant to be there with you, always watching so that they could be your guardian when needed. But that made you ask why they were so involved. You wondered why you needed them during your recovery. Were you not strong enough on your own? You caused Jeff so much trouble. You were sure that he hated being around you by now, and it was probably like walking with a blind person unable to hear or a crane unable to fly or walk. You were completely reliant of him. Your face is turning red, he said, resting his palm on your forehead. Are you stressed out about something? If your world hadn't been in a color before that moment, balloons of pain exploded around you because of that worried look of his, and you were sure that all the rainbows in the world decided to stay in that hotel room with you. They were waiting all your life for the silence after the storm, where their appearance could finally be appreciated. I feel like I'm swimming in hot ashes, you stated softly. But then you're like that guard trying to rescue me. The lids of his eyes became lighthearted just as his state of mind shifted to the occasion. You don't have to worry about anything anymore, he whispered. I'll swim in those ashes for you. You figured it would be best if you found out exactly where you were. So you discovered that the plane ride made you delusional and tired, and Jeff had eventually gotten you to the hotel room so that you could rest. He said that you were in and out of sleep and sometimes talking, but not really understanding anything you said. You were slightly scared of what type of secrets you could have told him unconsciously, but you felt personable enough not to care too much. Besides, what did you know that he didn't at that point? Jeff, you called? Do you ever just get scared of nothing? He seemed to pause for a moment as his eyes floated in midair and his face turned cold. I'm scared of a lot of things sometimes, he said. But those fears don't stick around long enough for me to worry about them. Only a couple are real enough to taunt me after I clear my head. Fear was just a concept. It wouldn't harm you in any real way, and for it was an idea brought to mind whenever you were unable to wrap your head around a picture. Fear was a simple outrage or spur that quickly retreated after reaching a small goal. If it was anything other than a mental barricade, it would have moved out of the lion's den and relocated itself in the hearts of the most paranoid people. The fear of death was simply fate, and it was nothing to be worried about. Are you okay? Jeff asked. Yeah, of course. I'm excited, you stated. You forced a smile in order to hold your sanity, and you kept getting this feeling that something wasn't quite right. You were in Paris, actually. I mean, of course you wouldn't be able to familiarize yourself with anything. You were just worried about because you knew nothing about Paris and nothing about Jeff. Your thoughts were interrupted when you started to stand and look back at the couch you had previously been laying on. A moment or two passed as a fuzzy brown haze caved in from the corners of your eyes, but it withdrew itself once you stood your ground and silently demanded for it to go away. That was a common ailment in your daily life. Anyways, you took some time exploring the huge expanse of penthouse you would be staying in. Jeff showed you the extravagant kitchen area for a family of 5, and he even went out of his way to show you the window in the bedroom with an amazing view of the Eiffel Tower. The countless floors below you were able to bellow at a pool surrounded by pavement, walking underneath a few late-night swimmers. You laughed at all the people jumping in the water under the bright white stars. The tour was cut off by a loud bang, and you sat in silence, and Jeff looked around the room frantically. He started to take a step away, attempting to walk around, but stopped when the sound of another bang filled the walls to a centimeter deep. It didn't sound far away, it was almost in your head. Jeff walked forward towards the shoe closet, silently gesturing for you to stay still. You watched him as he opened the door slowly, only to slam it shut right away. He ran towards you, grabbing your arm and yanking you up off your feet, and he pulled you into the bedroom and locked the door, pushing you against the wall furthest away from it. What? Jeff covered your mouth and whispered, Don't make any noise. You wanted to know what was out there. Was it an animal? You heard a lot of ruckus, including scratching and thumping that repeated itself over and over again as it got louder and louder. Then it suddenly went silent. It lasted for minutes. You were sure it was gone, whatever it was. You whispered, Jeff? He looked at you and opened his eyes more, implying he was listening. Is it gone? You asked so quietly that you practically mouthed it. He shook his head, and then you heard another bang. This one was close, like on the door close. You jumped back, not expecting the horrible sound, and Jeff stood between you and the door and gripped a metal rod he had previously broke from a coat hanger in the closet. He pointed it at the door, expecting the thing to come in. Stand back, he said to you. You walked backwards until your back hit the wall, and suddenly you got some sort of flashback, like hitting the wall gave you deja vu, or whatever. This was not the time to think about it. There was a rapid banging pounding on the door. After what seemed like hours, even though it only was a second, it broke the door down. It was a disoriented figuration of a human, almost like an extremely thin and bony old man standing like a dog, jaw almost touching the floor. Its mouth was enormously large, and saliva dripped from it like goo saturating the carpet. The beast's eyes were soulless and almost glowed. Jeff immediately darted towards it with a metal rod, hitting it upside the head, and it growled. What is that thing? And Jeff backed up from it and replied, I don't know. His voice was hesitant. Chapter 13. Perfidy? Day 4? Probably said that wrong. It lunged towards you, but Jeff stepped in front. The creature grabbed his shoe with a screech. He was pulled to the ground and nearly halfway out of the room. So you grasped his arm and tried to pull him back, only to be forced to the ground. The figure moved towards you, wrapping his extended jaws around your leg, and repeatedly you screamed in pain. I mean, it couldn't be happening. Some paranormal creature was attacking you, and you weren't strong enough to get it off your ankle. You could easily bleed to death with a gash like that. Jeff was able to stumble up and hurl it off of you, and you tried to watch what was happening, but your vision was clouded with incomprehensible slurs and fake romance that prevented you from seeing the light of day. You were just about to leave consciousness from loss of blood when you felt yourself being lifted up. After a dreamless slumber, you opened your eyes slowly, happy to be alive, and you remembered everything that had happened. Jeff was next to you. When he saw that you were awake, he sighed, or was he panting? What happened when I blacked out? You asked him, sitting up. He said, blacked out. You didn't black out. How impossible. The day just kept getting crazier and crazier. Or maybe it was just you that was losing sanity. Everything you thought to be real was just a shadow. Bloody towels and broken glass near the window disappeared the moment you laid your eyes on them. What made it even worse was that the injury on your leg was gone too, and it never happened. But you didn't want to believe that. You wanted to believe that you had been stuck in a coma for years and years while your wound healed. But again, not everyone is worthy of a recovery like that. The next shocking discovery was that you weren't in your hotel room anymore. No, you were hundreds of feet above the city of Paris. What's going on? You asked. Jeff had been looking out of one of the glass walls at the lights of the Eiffel Tower when you questioned him, and he wore a concerned glance as he finally understood the predicament he got himself into. You, of course, were clueless. You kept waking up in places you didn't recognize at all with no explanation as to how you got there. But the cause of this wasn't some sort of mental disease or brain trauma that affects those living too long of a life. It was the greed and envy that fills a person's heart when they realize that their original plans are ruined, and only course of action left is to take matters into their own hands and screw with maternal destiny. How did you know? Jeff asked. Why did you know? The Ferris wheel you were sitting in moved slowly around its center as the stars in the sky twinkled brilliantly. But the stars lost their shine in an instant. Every single one turned into a dim planet with catastrophic rays that could kill an entire universe through a black hole of missing information swelling in your bones. All the chances taken were seemingly for nothing. Your instincts told you that the intent of them was all pure. Now we're stuck in this Ferris wheel, this loop of everlasting fate, he said. We keep moving, but we're going nowhere. He stared at you with worn-out, anger-ridden eyes as water formed with the crystallized edges of his corneas. The clock behind his pupils laughed, and your tears dried in a flood, and the metal seat was chilled with deceit. Jeff put his fist against the glass, glaring at the turning world below him. You know, you choked. I always wanted to see the city lights at night. He glanced, but he didn't really see you. You said, this means more to me than you could. You stared at Jeff with eyes that spoke a million words of agony and pain that you would never know about. The light reflected off of them matched that of his face that watched the thousands of people in love show affection to those who have never betrayed them. He realized that absolutely everything he had done was for nothing. Does this mean I'm going to lose you again? He could never lose you. He answered for himself and rambled. What a depressed world, right? I mean, everything just ends in tragedy. All the people, all the feelings, they try to trick you, but you're in for more of a treat than they are. Forgotten memories that would disappear soon drove your mind to questioning the purpose of one's existence, but wasn't that hatred? Wasn't wishing someone to be dead the definition of hate? How could you hate someone that you didn't know you once loved? That's betrayal in itself. You wondered how Jeff was able to suck up his dignity and pull you to another country for the sake of returning what he stole, and it made you think that the only reason people do things is to get on with their life and fill a gap that was empty from the beginning. However, if that gap was always empty, why did certain things happen out of destiny? Why did it seem like you were destined to reach an ending you wouldn't have dreamed about? You never doubted him, and you never wanted to know anything more about him. You sat back and watched the tides cover the shore instead of fulfilling your destiny. You have to feel it for a reason, you know, it's not like everything was permanent. Hey, Jeff called. I love how you stare at me with those hate-filled eyes. They don't have a lot of depth. Makes them easy to read. You were caught thinking about solutions as to why everything was going wrong, but you couldn't come up with any answers. There were too many questions surrounding your shrouded brain, and fear that infiltrated your being didn't help you clear the fog. The bright white moon was a simple creature that loomed over your head from the essence of all the broken stars that form its undying pretense, overlapping the future in that day. If someone were to wake up with no memories, you would take the advantage. You would tell them anything in order to get what you wanted from them, right? But even if Jeff did lie, what did he want? And what could you do about it? You were completely helpless in your state. You were trapped in a mind covered with kudzu, and none of the controls were able to release the vines from taking over your depressed eyes. It made you worry and think that it just wasn't worth it anymore. You feared that everything in your future would keep getting worse and worse until you finished the game that was never meant to begin in the first place. Jeff lied in order to make you date him. That isn't such a bad thing. I mean, he loved you after all, right? Considering all the struggles he put himself through, he lied because he was selfless in every way. And even if your deductions weren't true, you still believed that the reason he comforted you in that box at the top of the Ferris wheel was so that you could put your fear to rest and enjoy your parasitic lifestyle without worries, regrets, or responsibility. That was until he injected you with another dose of red liquid that would put the lifestyle into shame. That is the end of those 2 chapters. Let me know what you think about those, and I will get to you into the next video. Bye-bye!